Welcome to Marketing Careers Uncovered, and I'm Dave Hayward. Today's conversation is a little bit different from the norm, and it's triggered mainly by a marketing trends report I read a few weeks ago. More specifically, it's the 2025 Marketing Trends report from HubSpot, and I'm afraid to say it wound me up a little bit. So when I was first developing my skills as a marketer, HubSpot were really well known and renowned for super practical advice, and perhaps most importantly, all delivered through that lens of ultimately doing what's right for customers. But this one struck a little bit of a different tone for me. It felt much less like a trends report and more as a product launch and positioning with a few insights sprinkled in. So every challenge, every issue, all seemed to have the same answer: AI, and more specifically, their AI. So I wanted to test my reaction. Do I need to just shut up and get off my high horse here? Am I being too cynical? Or is there something genuinely off about how this stuff is landing? So to do that, I brought together two very different voices today. The first is Em Brown. She's a junior marketing exec a couple of years into her career, and she's navigating the world of AI before really being given that space to build and understand her craft. She's going to bring a much needed reality check from that early career end of the spectrum. And secondly, I'm joined by Sam Birkett. He's an experienced strategist, brand thinker, and someone who's seen more than a few of these hype cycles play out over the years. He's certainly not a cynic by a long shot, but isn't easily dazzled by shiny new objects either. So Sam's here to give us some of that bit of a longer term view, pulling back the lens and pondering some of the big questions with us. And together, we're really going to pull apart what AI really means for marketers, how to sniff out what's useful versus what's just noise, and actually ultimately whether these trend reports now are helping us or are just firmly in the camp of selling to us. So before we dive into our chat, Em, do you want to give us a couple of words and introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Em. I work for a creative company called Cygnus, and we work for quite a few major brands within the industry, a lot of FMCG. I started my career in a different path. I started in construction, but I didn't start in marketing there, and then I moved into marketing for a TV company called Create and Craft, who sadly are in administration now. And then I found myself at Cygnus.
Brilliant. And Sam, how about you?
Yeah, so thanks for the intro, Dave, as well. I actually have my own marketing consultancy now, Aimable Marketing, and I've been doing that for the last 7 years now. But before that, I worked mainly in education, higher education, executive education, and professional services marketing. So I very much, when I started out my marketing career, I did various things. I was a headhunter for a while. I sold calculators, did things like that. But I quite quickly got into the marketing and business development arena, and then specialised really in, as I say, professional services, innovation management. I kind of put myself in the marketing mold of where academia meets the commercial world, really. So those are the kind of clients I work with now: higher education, exec ed, and I'm enjoying it all the time. Always learning.
Very good. So let's kick things off then, shall we? So I think we've already got the picture, but I got a little bit stroppy. I think what was absolutely gnawing at me was this sense that AI is just being rammed and crammed into absolutely everything. And it kind of makes sense. They've invested a lot of time and money into developing this, so there's got to be a return, right? But I'm interested in what your initial views were having a look through this.
Yeah, I mean, initially AI was really intriguing for me. I think it was something very new, something everyone was experimenting with. You could play around with it, you could see what it did for you. But it has very quickly become very normalized to be used. Like it's in every meeting that's being had now, whether it be client or internally in businesses, you're finding that it's like, what is your AI solution for the future? How are you going to be using AI? What are you going to be doing with it? And it's like we're suddenly grappling in the past year to find solutions on how we're going to use AI within our strategies. And it's quite scary actually, because we have strategists, we have like people in their roles that are supposed to be doing this work, and now all of a sudden AI is going to be taking over some of those job roles, and it could affect creativity, and it's a bit of a worry, I think.
So, what about your views?
Yeah. I mean, I think as you said, Dave, at the top. I mean, looking through the HubSpot report in particular, I mean, clearly they're positioning this very much as, AI is going to be you have to be doing this in everything you're doing. And I suppose that's the mood music that all of these big platforms push out there, of course, because they have invested an awful lot in it. And I noticed actually HubSpot produced their spring updates. I think it was yesterday. There was a press release, and there's 200 new feature updates, and most of them include AI agents. So again, you get that feeling that they're incorporating it in everything they do. But I think there's some really, I mean, I've been talking about AIs changing marketing for quite a long time, and how, I mean, as you say, about roles, are roles going to be eroded? Are the opportunities to do certain work streams, carry them out, particularly for people who are at that sort of exec level and coming up to manager level, are there going to be AI technologies which will actually replace the human being? But I mean, I think there's multiple layers here, and I think we have to look back as well and think about, well, AI has been with us for quite a long time, actually, in terms of lots of the platforms we've used. We just haven't really seen it as much. I mean, Word, Excel, whatever, MailChimp, all of the different platforms we've used. It's been there for a long time, but now it's I say the hype, certainly the everyone's talking about it even more, and you're seeing it more. But I think to break apart that, AI in creativity, AI in processes, AI in data and analytics, clearly it's affecting an awful lot, and we can already see certain jobs which are being affected by it. But I mean, I'm looking forward to the rest of this conversation, looking at seeing is it a tool or is it a team member? Those are the kind of things that I like to sort of think about in terms of AI and framing it. But there's so much to talk about, so I don't want to go all over the place in the first answer.
I've always been taught, from a technology perspective, is you identify what your problems or opportunities are, and on that basis, you assess what technology, if technology, is the right fit. So the fact that we're all running around going, right, we've got AI, how are you going to use this? Where are you going to use this? It does feel the wrong way around, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
And in terms of stepping outside of a hype cycle for a moment, is AI really such a revolutionary force? Or are we actually just getting ourselves all really excited about what is frankly another tool in the armory?
Yeah, so I mean, I use AI currently as a tool. I've only just started to use it due to guidance from my manager that I should use it for research and for things that I struggle with. So for me, PR is something that I've recently been brought in to do in my role, and it's one of my objectives. So I've started using ChatGPT to like draft press releases, as it's something that I can't just write as naturally as other copy that I can write. So I feel like that's helpful, but I always go in and I'm always changing the tone of voice, like the wording that's used. It's usually just for me, I'm using it as a structure. And I think that's really helpful. But what I'm seeing is like a lot of people are saying, oh, this isn't quite good enough. Just chuck it in ChatGPT and use something that's come out there. And I think that's where I'm getting concerned about how we're losing creativity in copy, particularly. I think it's a very it's quite difficult to navigate, especially when you're a junior, to know what work is good and what work could have been successful. However, because you've put it in ChatGPT and now that's like taken over instead, um, could you have done better yourself? And you don't get to learn that or see that when you're a junior, because you've just got to obviously go with what your manager or your director says. They've said to put it in there, and that's what's been signed off. So yeah, I think it's a tool at the moment for me that I'm using, but I'm concerned on where people are seeing it as like a replacement for your imagination.
Do you find yourself feeling subtly chipped away at over time with this?
Yeah, I think when it first came out, like I was so against using any form of AI in any context because I was so worried about losing what I'm learning and losing my voice when I'm writing things. I didn't want to become lazy and then just chucking it at AI and using that for my work, because then I'm not going to grow and I'm not going to progress and I'm not going to develop in my career if I do that. So I was so against it. And also, there's always that fear of being replaced when you're a junior. You're already at the bottom. You're concerned that if they find that AI is doing a better job or it's quicker than you, then what is the need for you? So yeah, I think it's a scary tool. It can be helpful in some situations, but it's definitely very scary at the moment as a junior for it to be taking over so much and people to be pushing it so often.
I think there is this. I think there is this real marketing generational divide, actually, a bit here, because it's something I talk about a lot, as you said, about, you need to know what good looks like. And unless you've been through that proving ground of understanding and seeing what doing it manually, or however you want to say it, doing it as a human being, getting that sense of, okay, well now, and I think it's great, Em, that you've been very aware of that and saying, look, I want to know how to understand, is this what good looks like? So you get to that point where someone who's more experienced, you say perhaps a manager level, is then going, okay, well, yeah, I know that this is what good looks like. Fine, just switch it on. But if you haven't had that opportunity to learn, then that's obviously worry. But I think this is where it also breaks down in terms of the tool or the team member, because I'm just thinking backwards to previous examples, like something I know Dave was involved with, mail automation, email automation. And it used to be the case that if you understood how, mail automation actually works, so sending out responses, getting certain, retargeting your audience and trying to get people to go down a nurture funnel of email, it was a sort of technical system which you had to learn and understand a bit about. It was clever. But there were lots of people at the time when this came in who didn't know how to use it. So they went, well, someone will work out how that's used. And then, the sort of specialists would use it. The difference, I suppose, now is that with AI, it's saying, well, this is just for all people. You don't need to know the technicalities. It's just something it's so user-friendly, sort of in inverted commas, that anybody can start using it. So just pick it up and off you go, and apply it to all these different areas, to your image generation, to your analytics, to your copywriting. And maybe that's a bit of a difference, I would say, if we're trying to feel where the difference is between previous tools and AI as another tool now. But yeah, it's interesting. Maybe there's that difference perhaps in generations, which is a concern.
It's a bit of a black box as well, isn't it? Because you put stuff in and now you don't really know what it's doing, do you? The algorithm does something and spits out something which sounds vaguely credible here. I'm thinking back to some of my early years in my career now, where I would produce a piece of copy and it'd be pretty terrible, right? Because I was just learning and getting started. But somebody far more experienced would sit down with me, would absolutely tear my work a new one, but would explain why and how I might want to think about it. And those are things which stick with you. And yeah, it feels like we are at risk of absolutely shortcutting that to the point where you start to lose that nose for what is good and what's not quite good enough. I think quite worryingly, I think we're on this trajectory where good enough is good enough.
Yeah, that's that. Well, and also, but as you say, good enough. And is it to do with, because someone could have a counter argument, say, well, but if you do use AI to produce a campaign, these days, you can log into LinkedIn or something else and it'll just say, AI, do the whole thing for you. Let's make this easier. Let's make your life easier and do the whole thing all the way from the beginning right through to the assessment. And then, whether you're going to repeat the campaign again. But you could argue that, well, if the analytics are there and if it's, it's going to create this amazing AI campaign, whatever it might be in, and then it's going to say if it's working or not. You still obviously need to set the parameters of, well, what are your objectives? What are you trying to achieve? Which customers are you trying to work with, and what do they need to do? And can you actually see if it's being successful or not? You could say that you could run all that, and perhaps there's more wastage, perhaps there's more damage to the brand as well, because if you're getting a load of volume out there instead of quality. And again, you're losing that human touch. The thing I always bang on about, and I think my tagline for my marketing is people before pixels. So it all comes back, as we know, a good marketer connects with the humanity in their audience. And if you're putting things in the way of that, that's a problem. If you're helping to do that more effectively, which is what everyone's been saying since AI came along the last few years, and I say came along, became more obvious, everyone's saying, well, if this can help you be more creative and connect more with your audience, great. But there's almost, I don't know whether it's as simple as saying there's two paths you go down. You either go full AI or you go, no, actually, I'm about the fundamentals of connecting as a human being. That's surely got to be the best place to enhance that. But it's a tricky path because we're being pushed by people like HubSpot to say, do everything in AI, off you go.
we're valuing speed and volume here when it comes to AI, oh well, we could do it quicker, we could do more of it, and is that right? Is quicker and more really what's going to be that makes a difference? I mean, it does start to beg the question now, though, of actually are the skills that we're developing ultimately the right ones now? Just because I learnt how to scratch out a piece of copy and have it ripped apart doesn't mean that that is the way forward for someone like you, Em. What skills should we be developing now? Are they the same? Are they different?
Yeah, I mean, I think the skills. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, are you a good are you a good prompt writer? Do you use AI? I mean, funnily enough, I was talking to a student the other day who's studying marketing, and he actually said he's hardly used it at all. He's hardly used AI at all, and I was quite staggered in a way. But I think it was good the way in which obviously the skills he's learning are saying, think about the fundamentals. For me, every time it's get the fundamentals right. What are the understanding what the fundamentals of marketing are, and okay, we can go back to Kotler, we can go back to, 4Ps, 7Ps, whatever. We can do all of that. But I think understanding, how to actually connect with an audience. And then, of course, I'm saying this as a generalist marketer. I mean, I'm more of a generalist marketer rather than a specialist, I would say. But I think the skills you need to develop, I mean, you could, as you said at the top end, there are some areas in particular where you're seeing potentially whole roles already being carved out. I talked to various friends who are in advertising. A lot of creative jobs are, if not, they're in peril already. And so you're thinking, well, do you need to specialize, or is it better to specialize actually in the sort of counterintuitive way, because there'll be fewer specialists in 5 years' time, 10 years' time? So I still think that the basic skills, the fundamentals, you've got to get them right no matter what you do in marketing, and then you can build on that. And again, maybe you'll use the AI tools in different ways, but fundamental skills, connecting with humans. I know I keep saying the same thing. I think you still need that, but I don't know what you think, Em. Obviously, you're more sort of current.
For me, I think it's important to start learning about AI and start learning how to prompt it, because the way that businesses are going, it does seem that they're going to be inheriting AI. Like even on job applications now, it would be like, what are your thoughts on AI? And you don't know the right answer. So you just have to keep it generalist, which is a shame, because it's like you don't want to be too honest, or you don't want to not say too much. You have to say you're embracing it. And I think already we're seeing the difference in experience of AI users. For instance, if you did you see the trend recently, I think in the past week, where it's me if I was a Barbie doll, or me if I was like a Lego set? Like,
I can't move for them.
there's so many. And I think you can see the difference of level of who can prompt well on ChatGPT specifically, because you can see the ones where they've come out and they're too humanized, and some of the prompts that they've probably used is just take this image and make me a Barbie doll, whereas other ones are like, make sure you plasticize me, make sure you create like little cups and things like that. You can see the difference in the prompts, and people that are good at it are sharing it on LinkedIn, and they're saying, message me or comment and I'll give you the prompt so you can do your own. So that's already becoming like a new niche, is that I've written a good prompt, this is the prompt you have to use. So I think that's something that needs to be start being taught. Maybe there'll be units on it in university, or even taught in schools like that early on, because businesses are wanting to embrace it. And as it gets taught, I think there is going to be a gap in generations where people that didn't get taught but haven't been in their careers long enough to know how to use it, or haven't learnt marketing enough and the fundamentals, as you say, they haven't got those fundamentals to know when it's good in AI. So there's going to be like a small gap, I think, in generations of people that are going to be at risk when trying to get recruited or trying to start their career, because they won't be able to use their marketing knowledge and AI at the same time and combine them. But I think the younger generations will be, and the older generations already have that experience and aren't at risk. So I think that's what we're facing at the
Yeah, it's
moment.
a bit of a no man's land developing here, isn't there? And I'm totally with you on the prompt piece. But yeah, I was doing a piece of work, gosh, a few weeks ago now, where it was essentially looking at developing some creative headlines for a certain sets of propositions. And my initial stab at this, going, well, let's see if AI can spit out something which I can start to then knock about a bit. And I started out with quite a short prompt, and the results I got were pretty mediocre at best. Then I sat down for 20 minutes or so, really thought it through, and wrote quite a long prompt. And I got 70% of the way there. It still needed some human input, but where I ended up was much, much better. Actually, those who sit down really think this through and actually deploy some of those fundamentals of marketing and how you connect with customers will ultimately write better prompts, get better outputs. And I think it probably is possible to then develop that nose still for what might connect with an audience and what won't, whilst not completely slamming the door on AI and going, well, I want nothing to do with this, because we've got to live in the real world as well, haven't we?
Completely. I mean, as you say, it's here. It's already been here for a long time. You've got to work with it. You've got to sort of what's the martial art where you use the power of your opponent against them. You have to sort of, and it's not an opponent, is it? I mean, as well, that sort of analogy I've got there, it's not. It's about actually, utilizing it as this tool. Interestingly, I mean, I've been working with a marketing colleague of mine who I collaborate with, and he's more experienced than me, and we started developing a marketing plan, a business plan for a new proposition, and so we did all the stuff that we do, the sort of thinking through the steps we need, etc. Created documents, created personas, did a lot of the sort of manual stuff, but then we used AI as this tool to help us to validate, to check research. It was a real research tool. We were uploading full PDF documents and things like this, and getting it to refine and come back and help us just speed up the process, enrich what we had as well, and gain data. And my goodness, that was a game changer. The stuff we've worked on, it would have taken us 5 times as long, and I don't think we would have had as good an insight. So it's a perfect example of two, I say older, I mean certainly more experienced, older sort of marketers going, right, come on, let's do this. But again, it's the prompt, is what you feed it. And again, for me, it was like, well, if I had a really good researcher working with me on this, I could say, right, I'm doing this. Can you give me some answers on this? Have a half an hour conversation with you, go read these documents. Can you come back with some answers? But instead of it taking a day or two, it's taking, 20 seconds, 30 seconds per piece, which I think that's the real power of it. But again, that's an enhancement. And I don't see that as a threat to me, because it's helping me, but I'm not hiring a researcher. So there's all these, there's definitely, pluses and minuses for the whole thing, I would say.
It's sort of like, have you seen Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the Johnny Depp version? So at the beginning, Charlie's dad loses his job when he gets replaced by a machine that is quicker and more efficient at him at putting the little caps on the toothpaste bottle. Yeah, yeah. And at the end of the film, there's like the happy ending of Charlie's dad. He gets rehired by the factory, but he gets rehired to fix the machine that replaced him. And I feel like in the terms of maybe like a researcher, so you say you're not hiring a researcher, but maybe we'll have people that their title is still a researcher, but they use AI, but they're going through it and they're fact checking everything that AI is putting through. They're editing the wording. They're making sure that nothing's plagiarized. Like maybe that's where it's going to go in the future of we will be replaced, but there always needs to be that human there behind it and to check that AI is still working as it should be. So you can still continue to be as efficient as why you've brought in AI to replace that human. Essentially.
Yeah, we're going to be quite careful about getting all swept up in the hype here. We've been here before throughout history. TV didn't kill radio. It just perhaps shifted what radio was for, and actually we're doing a podcast here today. So radio certainly isn't dead, it's just evolved. Computers, when they first came in, they didn't make loads of people redundant. They did create new jobs that we couldn't have imagined. The internet hasn't completely wiped out retail. It's put it under pressure. I think what we're in danger of here sometimes is perhaps overstating just how powerful some of this stuff can be, but perhaps also understating it as well. And the answer usually lies somewhere in the middle. Yes, things are going to change, but probably not in ways in which either end of the spectrum is probably thinking.
I'd agree. I think that's the thing. Looking back to historical precedent, I mean that's the thing. Nothing, and things never change, perhaps in the way we expect them to. Anyway, when they're happening, we look back and we say, "Oh, actually, yeah, as you say, this wasn't. It wasn't all bad. It wasn't all good. It was somewhere in the middle." And that you have. I think that the key thing, really, I suppose, as people living through it, marketers living through it, it's just that awareness, isn't it? And knowing that we know you have to be adaptable. I always use this old quote of this marketing professor I interviewed years ago when I worked at the University of Oxford, who said the best thing about marketing is it changes every day. The worst thing about marketing is it changes every day, and that's always been the case. And so it's adapting to it. But I mean, I was just thinking as you guys were talking there about the going back to the HubSpot report, I guess as well. Though the difference of the impact here for larger organizations, agencies, and then SMEs. And I think the SMEs piece and the single entrepreneur, the startups, a lot of those people perhaps are in more danger of getting swept along with, oh gosh, the fear of the FOMO, the fear of missing out. We've got to do this, we've got to do that, and we've got to implement these jazzy AI platforms and solutions, or they try and do a lot of stuff that isn't as good a quality, and it takes them longer to work out again what is good quality if they're not marketers themselves, perhaps. So I think you can see it definitely impacting different players in the market in different ways as well, and it's going to kick up a lot of opportunity. A lot, like you guys were saying, about the researcher changes, but there's definitely different opportunities for different areas of the market, and how we use this as well. So yeah, there's definitely some positives, lots of positives, I think.
And Em, are you seeing your colleagues and peers or people in a similar footing to you getting swept up in the hype and feeling like AI's got to do everything?
I think in some cases, yes. There's a few creatives in my team that they're quite worried, like their roles, they're creatives, and now that certain AI tools can create these images and they are just going in and retouching the images in some cases if it's where client has asked for it, like that's a risk to them, because there's juniors in that team that feel that, well, if I'm just a retoucher, that's the only skill I'm going to have in the future, is to be a retoucher. It's not creating these new images and these new campaigns. So it's definitely taking over a lot. And I worry about people's creativity in the future. Like, I think there's a viral post out there somewhere that says, I want AI to do my laundry and wash my dishes so that I have time to do my paintings and create art. I don't want my AI to do my art and create paintings. So I have more time to do my chores. And I think that's a really key point. Like, we want to be able to keep being creative, and it needs that human touch, and it needs to be coming from your own imagination, because that's the beauty of the human mind, isn't it? And AI can't replicate that. So yeah, it's definitely getting swept up, I think, in a lot of industries, and I do worry how it's going to impact my generation of juniors and their creativity when working.
One small thing I've started doing to guard against me being subtly eroded and those skills dulling over time is I've specifically put into my custom instructions in ChatGPT. Always, if you're going to edit or suggest any changes, always explain what you're doing, the rationale behind it, and why. Because even at in my mid to late 30s now, I'm still worried that over time I will just get really, really used to this, and it'll become a little bit like an umbilical cord. And the moment the internet goes down, I'm going to be like a caveman scrabbling around, not really knowing how to do anything. Yeah, it's a real worry of mine. And so what I've started doing on a practical level is just go, no, explain your thinking, talk it through with me. So actually, I've got the opportunity to disagree and go, well, actually, you've got completely the wrong end of the stick, because we can't forget that whilst everyone's cramming AI into everything, there's always that tiny little disclaimer at the bottom, which AI produced output may be inaccurate, because it can still go on an absolute bender somewhere and come out with something that is just absolute nonsense. It does happen, and we need to really guard against it.
Yeah, I think that's a great fail-safe. I would describe it for you to have, Dave, there actually, because that's so important to say why are you suggesting this, and then you can understand it more effectively. But it's like, I mean, I was thinking what you were saying, Em, about as well having the, you need to give human creativity its space to thrive. It needs enough oxygen. I suppose the ultimate way, speaking it from sort of hard-nosed marketing point of view, is we'll test. So if you say, right, let's stack up, one campaign which was fully human creativity against AI, and then see what happens. If we really believe that human creativity is actually not the be all and end all, but is the most important element of it, then we test something and we see what happens. But at the moment, of course, I mean, I would describe our work. I don't mean hybrid work as in hybrid working online and in the office. Our work's becoming AI human hybrid, isn't it? Or it already has been for a long time. We've been hybrid with digital technologies as long as they've existed. So it's the people who create the best hybrids of output, should we say, in terms of the campaigns, who will be most successful, in my opinion. I think that's probably how it will play out, really. But yeah, how you get that balance right, that's perhaps what the real skill is, isn't it, I suppose, and skills we need to develop.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's something where this is what really irked me with the trends report, because it doesn't talk to any of this nuance or balance. It's, we've invested millions, if not billions, in this platform. Right, you really need to feel like you need this now. And it's that oversimplification that you've got a problem, AI it. It doesn't really it doesn't really hold up in the real world. I guess bringing us back to the thing that sparks this all, that trends report landing, is we've all seen these float around now. I think for the most part, yeah, I get it. They are predominantly a tool for an organization to position themselves in a particular market. This one felt like it particularly crossed a line for me. But I'd be interested in your views of what actually makes a genuinely useful trends report outside of just being a bit of a product puff piece.
Yeah, I think, like you said, outside of it being a product puff piece, I think it needs to be that the reports need to know who they're talking to or who they're benefiting by producing that report. Are they benefiting the organizations that are pushing AI to be used, or is it benefiting the marketers and the junior marketers, the people that read the report and think, okay, this is how I'm going to be able to help my career, or this is how I'm going to help my business succeed? So I think these reports really need to focus on who they're talking to, the output, and not just pleasing corporations. They're pleasing the people that read it, and the marketers.
So you want to ultimately know, okay, if you're going to make any high and mighty claims, you kind of want to know, well, why is that? Why is that true? What's your thinking? How have you come to that conclusion? We're all intelligent people here. Let me peek behind the curtain and make my own mind up as well, and not just be fed the PR sound bites.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
And Sam, what about you?
Yeah. Well, I think, as you say, I mean, you've got that standpoint. As soon as you've got a branded, trends report, that it's got an agenda. That they're gonna obviously push what they want to push, what they want to talk about. I mean, I do find it very helpful in terms of, it gives you're either trying to validate points or thinking that you might have, or being challenged. I mean, if you've got a trends report that does actually give you an insight that challenges what you're seeing perhaps, or thinking, or hearing. I mean, we all like to have like the zeitgeist of, well, I think this is where things are going, what I've heard, and then this trends report says, yes, here's a fact, 78% of people say this. But then I'm always reading the small print as well underneath it, saying 78% of who, where, and then you can get an understanding. But if it is provoking you to ask questions, to think about, okay, well, is that the way things are going? Okay, does that mean that I have to change what I'm doing? I think one of the most important things in a trends report is this sort of triangulation. So if you've got one, get another two at least on the similar topic. So you've got a bit of okay, are they all saying pretty much the same thing? As you were saying, Em, with their sort of perspectives, are they coming at it from different perspectives? And if you can then triangulate those together, I think that gives you a better starting point to go, okay, does this challenge what I think is going on? Does does this give me new questions, new ideas? Does it create opportunity as well? Where could I buck the trend in terms of if the market's shifting in this position, is it an advantage or not if I look at things differently? But I think, you've got to have that. You've definitely got to apply that lens to begin with and say, okay, we know there's an angle. But then, if you've got 2 or 3 stacked up together, that should be provocative. That should make you think of, right, let's see whether if it's just telling me everything I already know, then is that as useful, I suppose, is the question, or everything I think I know. But it's got to be provocative, and you've got to have some other voices, I think, to compare and contrast.
Yeah, and you could be quite meta about it if you want as well, and put it into AI and go, right, why might this be absolute bollocks? Because I think that's the test I like to use of these things now. Not, okay, I could take this at face value, or I could look at it from well, give me reasons and why might this not be right? What assumptions are being made here? And then I can make my own mind up. But ultimately, where I come down to here is if this doesn't help me make smarter decisions about either the work I'm doing or the skills and approach I might need to take to further my career, then I don't see the point, really.
Yeah. And as you say as well, I mean, it's very much, you've got to look at the time and effort someone's spent on doing all this, and clearly they're doing it so their sales teams have got some nice stats to use as they go around, and obviously they're doing that beautiful lead generation. They get my email address to download this thing, and now they're going to be haranguing me for the next year, telling me about stuff. But I think it's also interesting looking back at a trend over time between 2020 and 2025. All the HubSpot reports, what's changed? How have they changed? And I'm not saying everyone should do this. Put it into AI, as you say, upload the last 5 reports. I might do that after this, and see, well, what's changed? Have they had a big variance in what's changing? Are they sticking to the same line? I think that's the meta idea you had, Dave, actually, of getting AI to actually say what are they pointing to in here, and how's it changing over time. Quite interesting, to be honest. And it'll only take you a few seconds to do it as well. I say it'll take the black box of AI a few seconds to do it, to be honest. But
yeah, because we're certainly not saying here AI is bad. We're saying let's just slow down a little bit, think about what problems we're trying to solve, make sure we don't completely lose our nose for what good work looks and feels like, and we can all be far more productive as a result. One last thing I would like to invite you to do before I wrap up. What's the one skill that you're starting to develop now in response to AI becoming a more prevalent force?
I think for me, it's my prompt writing. I think it's something I'm actively trying to develop anyway. But yeah, I think it's definitely making sure that my prompts make sense when I'm writing them for myself. Like if I was to give this brief to a human, would they also interpret it the same that AI would? So it's making sure that it would deliver exactly how I'd expect a human to deliver it. So yeah, I think that's the case. Also, I always say please and thank you. I think that's really important to say please and thank you to AI, just in case there is a revolution where they do come and murder it. At least I'll be saved.
very good point. Yes, well, I think it's probably similar, actually. I mean, funny enough, I was reading the other day, it said that, obviously, ask AI, it will respond in the manner in which you ask it. So if you're polite, it'll be polite. I asked one the other day in Shakespearean language, and it came back and gave the answer in Shakespearean language. But it was the right answer. It was an answer I was expecting, like you said, in terms of what you expect to see. But I think for me, actually, I guess it's prompt writing, but it's also the combination of AI tools I'm using. I think it's that awareness, but I think that's the thing I'm finding hardest to sort of say, right, which tools are in my sort of tool bag, my toolkit, which do I think are the most useful for me, which I'm using. So I think that's, I think trying to keep up to date. I think for me, it's trying to keep up to date with what these different tools and engines can do, and how I want to use them, the balance of how I use them in my work, that combination, as I was saying, that sort of hybrid. That's probably that I say awareness or appreciation is probably the thing I'm looking at. But as you say, you've got to have great prompts, of course, as well, because that feeds everything. You can have the best tools, but unless you know how to use them, they're not going to give you the right results. So I suppose that as well, really. But there's two. I've cheated. I've said two sort of things rather than I've borrowed one of yours, Em, as well. So I apologise, but I think that's That's probably where I am at the moment.
Brilliant. Personally speaking for myself, one of the things that I'm doing is I'm really making sure that I'm not losing the art of having conversations with other human beings, which I know sounds absolutely daft. But one of the things I'm really conscious of is being able to speak and engage with stakeholders across the business and industry, not losing that ability to connect with people. And actually, ultimately, when I talk to subject matter experts and I use some of that input from them to also go into some work that I might do augmented with AI, I'll get better inputs, which will ultimately give me better outputs. So it's on a similar vein of not losing that human connection. I think we might all scoff at that a little bit, but when we're tapping things into ChatGPT or using voice chat and being able to bark orders at this thing and it go, yes sir, no sir, 3 bags full, we could get into a little bit of a virtuous cycle here where we just get crap at communicating, which would be very sad indeed.
No, I think that's a really good point, Dave. And something that worried me the other day, so a Gemini ad, I think it was, and it said, at the end of the advert said, you can even just have a chat with me if you want this AI on your phone. And there was a young guy, a young demographic, going, "Oh, can I? Wow, that's amazing. That's exciting." And that's the darker side, which I fear for being a bit more old fogyish, I guess. But like you said, I think you make the point really well.
I think this has given us quite a lot of food for thought. And I think where we've got to here is that AI perhaps isn't the silver bullet for absolutely everything, but it's also not the enemy either. It's a tool. It's no different from a keyboard or a hammer. Like any tool, it really just matters how and why and when you use it, really. My takeaway here is that the real challenge of all of this is not to panic, not to blindly adapt and retool your entire business or approach because one trend report amongst a few all say you need to use AI. But always ask what I want to do better and is this actually helping? Because ultimately, the next time you read a trends report, ask yourself, who benefits if I believe this? What part of this will genuinely make me a better marketer, not just a faster one? And just take the time to interrogate a bit and call out some of the bullshit that might be simmering under the surface. So thank you so much, and Sam, for joining me today. And thanks for you as well for listening. If you enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe for future episodes, leave a review or share with your friends and colleagues. And we'll see you next time.